Black Tech Green Money. My name is Will Lucas, as you know, and I'm so glad to be with you for another episode. This was going to be a fun one for me. I've known Barry for a long time, and he's making major moves. So, Barry Gibbons is managing partner at Collab Capital, and he's a dynamic entrepreneur and technology innovator, widely recognized for his work to bring parity to the innovation economy. Collab Capital recently raised $75 million for Fund 2, bringing their total assets under management to $125 million. So if you need the $10 loan, he's the guy to ask.
I can do 10. I can do 10.
It's good to see you, Barry.
Good to see you, brother.
Absolutely. So I want to go kind of back to the beginning. So you said when you guys started out, that Collab Capital was built to be the firm you and Jewel, your partner, wish you had when you were starting out. What did the traditional VC model get wrong back then for Black founders?
Oh man, that's a deep question, and there's so many answers to that question. But I'll take it very this seems like a thing that you wouldn't think about or you wouldn't feel is important. But venture capitalists didn't see Black founders, and not like visibly seeing them, but when you walk into a room as a Black founder and you're pitching your company, there's this thing where, investors say that we know whether or not we like the deal within the first 10 minutes. And for a Black founder, we spend that first 10 minutes typically validating that we even deserve to be in the room. And so how can I get across to you that my business is worth investing in if you haven't even got over the point that there's a Black person sitting in front of you that has the ingenuity and the intelligence to build this innovative product that they're pitching to you? It's a lose. You can't win in that manner. And so when we say we wanted to build the fund that we wanted, we just wanted people to see Black founders as what they were, which is brilliant, innovative, educated, creative people that can build things that will change the world. And that little tiny switch in mentality allows us to go find alpha in places where, other investors think that alpha doesn't exist. Alpha is a term, I'm not even sure when it was created. We didn't use it back when I was building, but it's a term that basically means there's the opportunity to build an extremely valuable company. We call those companies alpha. That's where you find the best returns and the best investment opportunities.
Got it. And so I've heard it said that, for VC, you really don't know if you're a good VC until like 10 years in, because it takes that long to really see how these companies shape out and shake out. And how would you describe the core thesis behind Fund 2, and what successes were you able to display in Fund 1 that says to your investors, let me get them some more money?
Yeah, so one big thing about being an emerging manager, particularly a first-time fund manager, is that if you're able to get through the gauntlet and raise the first fund, I know we'll get into that a little later.
Yeah.
That the second fund is really about, did you do what you told me you were going to do? Because as you mentioned, to show true performance, we're typically going out and we're raising, starting the fundraise of a Fund 2, probably 3.5 years after we've closed out on Fund 1. And the companies just don't move fast enough in order to see true progress. We're not returning any of the capital to the investor. Most of the time, you haven't returned any of the capital back to the investors. And so the investors are looking for really two main things. And that is, did you do what you said you were going to do? We said that we built a fund that was going to focus on Black founders and building products in the future of health, the future of care, and community infrastructure. We did that. We said that we were going to support those founders because me and Jewel have operational backgrounds, and we would be able to provide something different than maybe other venture capitalists could not provide because they hadn't been in those trenches. And we did that. And then the second thing that investors or that LPs look for to invest in that fund too is, did you learn anything? And this is where I think a lot of fund managers fall a little bit because they're afraid to talk about the things that they did wrong. And at the end of the day, we're all getting, no matter what you do, the goal is to be getting better at the thing that you're doing. You know, your podcast is totally different probably than it was with your first episode.
Yeah,
And
100%.
so, and so if you can go into that fund too, and you can tell your investor that this is what my diligence process looked like when you invested the first time or when I raised the first fund. And look at how our diligence process has grown. We've added in better references. We've added in better tooling to make better decisions on our investment decisions. We've trained our investment team to make better decisions. We've also made decisions that we look back on and say, maybe we should look at a founder differently in this vein the next time around. Or maybe we should look at a market differently. And all of those learnings could turn out to be companies that went to zero in fund one. But if you learn from those and then you can show that progression throughout the portfolio of your fund one, then you're able to go into that meeting with the investors for fund two and have a really good opportunity to raise that second fund. And then obviously the last thing is performance. Like I said, maybe you do not have any distributions, which is capital back to your investors, but you still want to show that your portfolio companies are progressing, that they're growing revenue, they're growing in triple digit growth year over year, that they're able to raise capital from other investors, that they're moving towards profitability. There are all these things that you can juggle with metrics to show even in the early stages that your portfolio is moving in the direction of success.
So interestingly, I love that you said, there's things different about my first episode than they're different now. Because my first episode, I would have asked, being black and having those failures, what's the difference in walking in? But that's an obvious question. But to me now, being a mature podcaster, I want to ask, there are things that you've learned in going to raise money. And what I think some startup founders may not understand is just like they're pitching to you, you're pitching to funders also. Like you're both pitching somebody. And so when you go to you get with Jewel, you make the call, hey Jewel, or Jewel calls you like, yo, let's build a fund. Or I call my dog and I'm like, yo man, let's go build a fund. We need to get some capital out here. I see opportunity. What happens from there? Like, what is the process like from you making the call to your homie, being like, let's start a VC firm, a VC fund, to the point to where you're in a meeting? Like, what's the in between like?
Oh, there's a lot of decision making. Picking your partner is the most important thing, right? Like, who is that phone call to? That's an extremely important decision that you have to make because you're basically signing up to be working with this person for a decade. Most fund lives are 10 years. And so when you are starting a fund, it's funny because I'll go back to a little bit of my experience when I was building Monsieur. At the tail end of Monsieur, one of the reasons, and with Jewel with Part Pick, we had really, and I'll speak just to me because Jewel's not here to tell her story, but I had a very bad experience at the exit of my company. There were a lot of things that happened between me and my investors that I thought could have been handled better, that I thought had I been in the other seat, that I would have handled things a lot differently, that was more beneficial and that had a little bit more heart towards the founder that had put their blood, sweat, and tears into this product. And so the first thing when I called Jewel to have this first meeting and say, hey, is this something that you're interested in? You have to have a why. Like, we went into this deeply rooted in the problem because me and Jewel had just experienced this issue and we wanted to go out and solve it. And investors see that. Whether you're starting a company or you're starting a fund, they can see how passionate you are about said problem. And so calling Jewel, we were having this meeting and it was immediate. I known Jewel for over 10 years, right? So I knew she was passionate about the problem as well. But then it goes into, what does this thing look like? And we don't have enough time to talk about all the different iterations and the things that we tried, the things we didn't try. But one of the things that we did very early on is that we found a champion, a gentleman up in New York named Malcolm Robinson, who is an OG in the investor space. He's backed many funds. He runs a coaching platform, or education platform for future venture capitalists called BVCC. And we brought him in very early on when our documents were rough, when we didn't know what the hell we were doing. And you need someone like that that's going to be real with you and look you in the eye and say, you have no clue what you're doing, but let me bring you in and tell you what you should be doing. And that totally changed how fast we were able to build Collab and get it off the ground. And then I know we talked about just between the first meeting. I'm going a little further than the first meeting.
This is good.
But the other thing that I see fund managers doing now that I think is super important, I'll be remiss if I did not mention this, is people are just jumping off the cliff. And I think they look at people like Jewel and I and they say, oh, well, Jewel and Barry jumped in and just started a fund. And that could be no further away from the truth. We did jump in with the idea of starting a fund, but the part of the process that people maybe didn't put two and two together is that we did not have great track records. Jewel had a couple of angel investments. I had an angel investment, but we did not have long, deep track records to be able to put in front of investors. And so
as
when
investors.
Jewel took
track
as
records
investors.
as investors. Okay.
Exactly. Only thing we had was our entrepreneurial experience.
Right.
And so what people didn't see was that we actually had a meeting before Jewel took the job at Google for Startups. We had a meeting before I took the job as managing director at Techstars as strategic things for us to do to be able to get to the end product, which was a fund. And so we had already started Collab when we took those roles, but we knew we needed to do a little more to beef up our resumes to successfully raise the first fund. And so there were a lot of things that we learned along the way, like track records, like, how to put together a proper LPAC and talk about that's the advisory committee for your limited partners. There were a lot of things we just had no clue about that we learned along that year and a half before Collab became a real product in the market. And we had to make those decisions along the way very strategically. And I think that's why I love podcasts. A lot of times people don't hear this full part of the story, that you have to go learn and you have to be able to fund yourself. And so if you jump off that cliff and you don't have the proper funding to take care of you and if you have a family, to feed yourself, it's a long road to get to that first close, to be able, if you ever get to a first close, to be able to get a very tiny management fee to be able to take care of yourself. And so all of these things we had to put into our equation in order to get the fund off the ground. And that started from that very first early conversation of, do we even want to do this?
Yeah. It is so much there. I want to kind of translate what I believe I heard you say for people who, because I've had people come to me like, yo, I want to start a fund. Not that they're asking me to start. They just kind of talk about they want to start one in their community. And what I'm hearing you say is it's not like, hey, we want to start a fund. Let's see who we know at this teacher's retirement fund. Let's call them and see if they'll give us money. Or let's go to Nabisco and see if they'll give us money. That's not what you're saying. What you're saying is we made some connections and we learned.
Yep.
And so this book, that statement reminds me of when you talked about Malcolm Robinson. This book is called Who Not How. And it was like, you could have just went and done a bunch of work, but you realize there's a person I need to connect with to show me the game. And so can you talk to the people who believe that they have a record? You've been an entrepreneur. You talked about that. I want you to go a level deeper, though, on, there was a difference between me and being an entrepreneur and me being somebody who can write checks.
Yep.
Can you just talk a little bit more about that in there?
Yeah, so understanding numbers and being an investor, there are a lot of people on Wall Street that understand numbers really well. They're great with spreadsheets. They've been in finance for 20 years. But if you haven't operated, particularly at the early stages of a company, there are things that you don't know need to happen that need to happen. And if you think back to the traditional days of venture capital when it first started, it wasn't started by folks off of Wall Street that were investment bankers. It was started by entrepreneurs that had had success that then said, let's use this money to go find other people that look like us, unfortunately, but more importantly, that think like us, that have the ability to go find the next great idea and build the next great widget that'll shift an industry. And so the heart of venture capital has always been with operators going to find other operators. And what it's transformed to is that now it's become a finance company, right? It's like now it's this it's been kind of indoctrinated into the traditional worlds of finance, and a lot of it is traditional finance. We're looking at your income statements and your balance sheet. So we're doing all the traditional finance things. But when you're investing in particularly in early stage companies, there's something you're looking for in the founder to know whether or not they have what it takes to make it through the trenches of being an early stage founder. There are things that you're looking for and how quickly they're able to operate and iterate. How do they handle challenges? Are they in a space in their life where this is a great idea for them to do it right this moment? Like, there are things as operators that we have seen. And the other thing, as an operator, you're around a lot of other operators. So I'm not just leaning into my experience. I'm leaning into your experience. I'm leaning into all the founders that were building things when we were in the trenches, right? 10 years ago. Because we talked to each other and we built relationships. And so I'm not just leaning on to my world experiences, but I'm thinking about all the things that my peers went through. And now I'm able to take all of that experience and hopefully help boost the founders that we invest in, so that they can skip over some of those early steps, because I'm seeing around corners. And a great example of this, we made an investment into a company, black male founder, has a doctorate, one of the smartest people I've ever met, NASA rocket scientist. And I told him early on, I said, this is the type of innovation that by the time you get to Series A, somebody's going to try to remove you as CEO and get you out of the way, because there's a lot of value in this. And as you continue to bring on investors, this is what is going to happen.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be years down the line. He called me like 6 months later and he was like, man, you would never guess what happened. He's going out to raise a bridge between a pre-seed and a seed round.
Wow.
Like, he hasn't even got to the seed Series A. And he's like, they back channeled with my co-founder, who was a white woman, and tried to get her basically to turn on him to say she wants to be the CEO and to move him out of the way. And luckily they handled it great. We got through it. But being able to see around those corners, and particularly as a black founder, we're able to bring those experiences and make being a black founder, even though a lot of times it's looked as a detriment, we're able to take our experiences and turn it into a positive by beating them at their own game.
Yeah, so can you add some clarity? Because the way investment is positioned in many cases is like, we want to help founders. And you just kind of added reality in that this is about finance. This is about dollars and cents. And so there's a balance there. And we get marketed to like, they want to help me grow because they like me and they like my idea. And what's really true, that might be true, but what's really true is opportunity has to be there to 10x, 20x, 100x this investment. So can you give some clarity for the entrepreneurs who might be confused, just thinking the people might want to help them, and think that maybe not even them, but they think capital is about helping them. Can you give them some clarity on what this is actually about?
Whew. One of the biggest mistakes that I made as a founder was believing that my investor was my friend.
Mm.
And it's not saying that your investor cannot be your friend outside of the business. But inside the confines of that business, particularly if that investor has a fund, because they have to answer to LPs. So in the confines of that business, their job is not to be your friend. Their job is to be a good fiduciary, which means there's be good stewards and good managers of the capital that was given to them to then invest. And so I think it's a mistake that I made as a founder. And I tell my founders, I don't think there's anyone out there in the world that is an investor that's going to have your back as much as I will. I will put me up against, and Jewel as well, against any other investor in the market. Like, we are going to have your back. But there's going to come a time where the friend talk and having your back, I'm going to have to balance out what is the best thing for the capital, the $1 million that I gave you. That becomes the most important thing at some point. And I don't want you to place me in a position where you expect me to make a decision for you when I really need to make that decision for the capital that I gave you. And this gets into board makeup, which is where I made the mistake. Typically, your early stage, you create a board. You want one preferred stock, i.e. the investor. You want one common stock, i.e. the founder. And then you want one independent. I chose my independent to be an investor in my company that I thought was going to be friendly because we had built this relationship. But when it came down to it and we had to make decisions, that investor invested. I didn't understand it when I was a founder, but now that I'm on the other side, I have a lot more clarity. And I'll take this one step deeper from an education perspective. I also believe that founders don't even really know what that means. And this is where I spent a lot of time in the last year of getting founders to understand what even having an investor means. What are the financial expectations that I have of you when I give you that $1 million check? And so I've done it with my founders. I've done it on other podcasts. I do it very briefly here. But as an investor, my job is to, at the bare minimum, give my investors 3 times their money back. So for a $50 million fund, their minimal expectation for me being in the lower bracket of success is giving them 3x their money back. I really want to be closer to 5x. Like, that's where I really want to live so I can be top decile, kind of top investor in the country, kind of thing. So what that means for a company is if I'm giving you $1 million and I'm only getting 10% of your business, that means for you to return, I'm calculating my decision on you returning that whole 150 million, not returning the $1 million back to me, not even returning 5 million back to me. Because at the end of the day, I think our power law, where the majority of our returns are going to come from 3 or 4 companies. So if I want to hit 5x, I need those 3 or 4 companies to at least give me 1 times the fund. So I need you to at minimum return 50, but I may be doing math to try to get you to return 150. And so you may have a company that you're pitching me that you're like, it's going to be $100 million company. And I'm like, I agree. But after I get diluted in a couple of rounds and I own 10%, but now I own 7, that $100 million company isn't going to do much to move the needle. Like, that $7 million ain't going, like, what is that going to do for me when I need to give this back to my investors? I need you to be a $1 billion company so that I can get 70 million back, right? So like doing and getting them to understand what a $1 billion company is and multiples and all that stuff. It's a lot of math that goes in what makes a company venture backable. And I don't think I know founders are not doing that math before they step into a Zoom call or a meeting with me.
So I believe Black people are special. That's why I'm here. And so we're
definitely special, Will.
Likewise, my brother. And so we have not always been able to take advantage of that specialness, capital-wise. We've not always been able to reap the rewards of it. And so what does it really take for us to turn genius into generational wealth, in your estimation?
Oh, I like how you took the tagline. I like that. Genius to generational wealth. Yeah. One of the coolest things I've ever heard. You know, it's one of our taglines at Collab. Yeah. But what does it take to turn genius into generational wealth? There are a lot of really smart people that are dead broke. Genius does not automatically mean that you are going to be on the mountaintop. Just like it's a lot of great athletes that are sitting at home right now when they thought they would be in the league. There's a level, and this is where that passion comes in for solving your problem. Because there's a level of work ethic. I'm probably going to say something that is unpopular in 2025, but soft life doesn't exist when you want to be great. When you want to build something that is long lasting, that will outlast you.
Brutal.
there are no multiple vacations a year.
Yeah, man, it's brutal.
That money should be being reinvested back into your company. And I know we're in this mental health,
Yeah, it's real.
yoga, soft life.
Yeah,
The founders that I see doing that aren't moving the needle. And I think what happens is they see founders do that after the founder has moved the needle. And they say, oh, this founder's out here, got a beach house and they kicking it. They on Instagram showing they went to 4 different countries this year.
Yeah.
But you didn't see them 12 years ago when they didn't even leave their city, right? Like, let alone leave the country. And so there's a certain level of grit and understanding of how much grit it takes that turns that genius into generational wealth. But even if you're a genius and you have the grit and you can show that you have the grit, you still have to build the right product. And so now you have to get into, is this product something that people will pay for that can grow and do $100 million in revenue, $200 million in revenue? Is it global? How much money does it take to scale? All of these things, right, that go into, is the business a good business? And so then you say, okay, I'm a genius. I have grit. I'm ready to work as hard as anybody. And I'm building this product that's in a great market. The most unfortunate part is the one thing you really can't control is that then you have to build it at the right time. Mm-hmm. Timing is everything. And being a year too soon or a year too late, there are companies that I've seen that if they created this AI, this company 3 years ago, it takes off. But you created in 2025 and now AI is eating it in 2 weeks, right? And so you were 3 years off of your schedule from probably having a rocket ship and being one of the early acquisitions in the AI time to now you build it 3 years later and you're a nothing burger because you built it and it's not, you're still smart. You still worked your ass off. You still didn't sleep and ate, Papa John's every day, Domino's every day. You did all the things that you're supposed to do. And so there's so many things along the way that have to go right to create true generational wealth. And that's why this is the riskiest capital that exists, is because you need so many things to go right, and why the power law exists, and why we don't go into this investing in 38 companies thinking that only 4 of them are going to be successful. We think every company we invest in has the opportunity to be a huge success and return the fund. But the facts show that's not going to be true because all those things have to go right to create that generational wealth. And we haven't even got into being black and the inequities and all that stuff is this is just normal entrepreneurship. Then you throw in all of the other things on top of that, and it really takes a lot of intentionality from the entire community and ecosystem to get through those barriers. And that's one of the things that we pray and hope that we are doing for the community as Collab Capital.
You said something, a phrase, is it global, that stuck out to me. And, we used to talk about, it's not enough for your homies to want what you're building. It's not enough for your block or your city. It's at the end, we was like, can at least it go national, but you just talked about global. And so I wonder how you would challenge us to not just think domestically anymore when you have an international import, export of both thought, ideas, and products when it's so easy to do now. Is it enough anymore just to be known in the 50 states?
I mean, in some cases, yes, it can be enough to create a, unicorn by just being in the United States. That being said, it is extremely difficult. I mean, you have to get so many things right. You have to find such a market need that is focused here in the US that everybody that has that market need is going to want to utilize your services, right? Or your product. But at the end of the day, we're doing this Zoom call from two different, this podcast from 2 different states.
Yeah.
You could be in Bali right now and we could be doing the same thing, right? So information and ideas move so fast that not only do you have to build something global, but you also have to worry about global competition, because those companies that are being built in France and Spain and, in India and in, Ghana and all these other places where founders that have all those same things to create generational wealth, they now have the ability to get it right to the United States, just like you do, just like you have the ability to get your product into their country. And so you have to be thinking globally when we do checks to see are there competitors, particularly if it's a pure software company. We're looking everywhere to see, are there competitors? Is there room for you to grow into this other continent or country, or is there already a market leader there? Because when we think about creating unicorns and getting to multi-billion-dollar valuations, you need millions and millions and millions of customers typically to hit that point. And so by creating something that's global, you just give yourself a better chance at finding that when you're looking through 7 billion people versus 380, 400 million people just here in the United States.
And you've been named to AFROTECH Future 50, celebrates you on that one. And this recognition celebrates impact and influence. How do you define those in your career today?
Oh man. Influence is a tough one, but I'll get to that one second. Impact is the easy one for me. I want to look up in 20 years, and I want to see a bunch of black folks with a bunch of money that are maybe now sitting in the seat that I'm sitting in today on Will Lucas's podcast, Black Tech Green Money, doing the 15-year edition. And when you ask them how they got here, they say, man, there was this company, Collab Capital, that believed in me when nobody else did. And they wrote me my first $1 million check. And if it wasn't for that check, I would not be sitting in this seat on this podcast talking to you today. And I think that every single one of our founders have the chance to do that. And unfortunately, the majority of our founders do have that story, that their genius was not seen as this golden opportunity. And we sit in this space where we're able to absorb that genius and see that genius and invest, and for many times be the largest check, in some cases the only check, that is believing in some of these companies. We have a company, I would get into that later, but on the impact side, that is what I would like to see, because what happens is this is a flywheel and we're playing the long game. And so when we started this, we did not think that our impact was going to be seen in 5 years. We have to let the cycles go through their cycles. And you mentioned it earlier, there's a 10-year cycle, 12-year cycle from an investment to that company getting to an exit, creating that generational wealth, for that person to then go and reinvest and then create their cycle. And so this is something that is going to be a 20, 30-year impact, but I think we're doing a great job. And influence, man, I think I hate that word. This is why I'm not on social media a lot, because I think it's gotten a bad rap. I don't really like the word anymore, but I think when you influence just means leadership. It means how are you bringing yourself to the table so that someone else is able to look at you and learn from you and bring themselves to their table better. Right. And so that's just leadership to me. And I think I'm doing a good job of that. I mean, time will tell, but it's kind of similar to the impact. Like, I want my influence to be that I am pushing people to make better and more impactful decisions. That by looking at me, that I'm influencing people to do things a little different. I'm influencing my white investor peers to look in pots that they may not have looked in before. I'm influencing founders to think with bigger visions because of the conversations that they're having with me. And so I think that influence, by just being a good person and exuding leadership in the spaces that I'm in, will ultimately lead to that deeper impact and ultimately lead to all of us hopefully not having to have these conversations at some point. Hopefully we're still alive, but we don't have to have these conversations about needing to do things for Black people.
Finally, you once wrote a book called Plan B Sucks. If you could add a new chapter to that book, knowing what you know now, what would it be called?
Whew, you didn't send that one over. That is I wasn't ready. If I could add a new chapter, oh man, Oh, Plan B sucks. Work on your dreams, not your bosses.
Yeah.
Man, that was a long time ago. What chapter? Damn, you got me with this one, Will. Oh, man.
I want this to be like just a raw, authentic. I mean, you wrote the book and you've lived a life since. So, and we can take a moment to kind of just give you a moment to think about this.
You know what the crazy part is I wrote that book at a time where before influencers, before people had these mics. And I wrote it at a time where I was preaching from the mountaintops that I could find that nobody should have a real job and everybody should just go quit their job and work for themselves. And I think totally different now.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
As a person who started companies, it is extremely hard. And one, I also need to hire people. So if everyone quits their job and I'm the person starting companies, who do I get to work for me, right? So the math just didn't math from when we wrote that book. But I think it came from the heart of doing something that is influential, that is impactful. Like, what is your dream? And I think maybe, I don't know if it's a chapter, but I think something that I would have ingrained throughout the book is that the plan, it doesn't have to be like how you get your income, right? It doesn't have to be around jobs. It was really more so about finding something that you deeply care about and go do that thing. You can do that in many different ways. You can sit on nonprofit boards. You can start a nonprofit. You can go work at a company that is, deeper into solving that problem so that you can jump in and bring your ingenuity, your skill sets, and your experience to somebody who's already 50 yards down and help take it the other 50 yards, right? There's so many ways that you can work on your plan A. And the plan B sucks part was really just about don't get caught for 40 years doing something that you hate or that doesn't bring you happiness and joy, that doesn't bring impact without ever trying to find that joy. Right.
Yeah,
and so I think
good.
that will be a little bit of the shift of the narrative, is that it's not about quitting your job. It's about finding you and doing the thing that you were put. I don't know what people prescribe to religiously, but for me, it's about finding the thing that God put me here to do. And when I leave and go visit him at the pearly gates, I want to be able to go to that gate with nothing left and say everything that you put into me to leave down here, that I left all of it down there. And that's that plan A. Like, what is that thing that you need to do to fulfill that spiritual glass so that you are right with yourself and right with whatever being that you believe in? And I believe that I found that in the work that I'm doing with Collab. And I just hope that I'm giving it everything that I can. And when I get up there, I can say, hey, I found my plan A and I gave it everything that I had.
Well, you gave that answer, everything. So that was really good, man. I appreciate you taking that one. Man, Barry Givens, thank you so much, man. Thank you so much.
Man, thank you for having me, and kudos to you. I was trying to remember, were we were one of the first episodes, I feel, when you first started.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
And I was trying to look back to see if we were number one. I couldn't remember. I don't think we were number one, but we were close to it.
No,
and so to be here, for the second round, man, it's good to see you still thriving, killing it, seeing your podcast and people loving it, doing numbers. And so kudos to you for providing this platform. Kudos to AFROTECH for not just, giving us these kudos, but all the other Black fund managers that are out there in the trenches doing the work, because this work is hard. It's people fighting against us every day to slow us down, throwing bricks in the road so we can trip up. And it's a lot of us out there that are trying to do right by our community. And I'll take a little bit of privilege just to say how important it is for us right now as Black fund managers. I know everyone doesn't understand the VC world, but there was something that happened in 2020 when the George Floyd situation unfolded. He was murdered and the video came out and all these, performative dollars came into the market. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of fund managers that were funded during that time and they took advantage. I'm happy we were one of them. Now we've kind of moved out of those black dollars and we're into the evergreen dollar. So we're in a good spot. But the importance of that comment is that now that we're under fire, the macro environment is not great. But you mentioned going out to raise a fund 2 and then a fund 3. We are now that vintage of fund managers that raise money during that time. We're now on the hot seat. And our industry is going to look at that time and they're going to say, look at all this money that we gave to Black people. And if we're not successful, there's going to be a narrative that is written for decades about Black fund managers and Black founders and what they're able to do. And so this is just a severely and deeply important time, not just for us as fund managers, but for the entire ecosystem. And so I just want to say to the founders, like, keep building dope shit. To my other fund managers, keep your head up, keep working. To people around us in the ecosystems, keep supporting. If you see a Black fund manager or a Black a Black founder that's building something, download the app, use their product, because we are in hard times right now. And if we don't make it happen in the next 4 to 5 years, we may never see the holy grail of Black dollars going into Black companies that we want to see, because we are in that space right now and we have to be right. We have to be right now. And so please continue to support, keep supporting the podcast, keep giving people a voice, because people need to hear these stories. So appreciate you.
Man, that was so good. Thank you, Barry.